So class, I want to welcome you to week 5 and say that I think we could probably all agree that the discussions were much more productive and interesting this week. And I really like the way that you guys engaged with the text. I also, and I mention this probably a lot, but I always want to restate this, that I liked that many of you would say things like, oh, I can see that, Howard Zen clearly has his bias, his liberal bias or his leftist bias. And you're saying, I would agree with him here, I would question this, but yeah, I see this point. In other words, you're not just taking into the account the history, but you're actually analyzing the way that the history is being analyzed, and you're having that discussion with your students. So that's great. And you were looking at a primary source, Common Sense by Thomas Paine. And I think a lot of you enjoyed that, and you kind of saw the brilliance of the way that he utilized things that were popular in American culture at the time, such as the Bible and the sentiments about the king, and the way that he mobilized the colonists. And so I just want to say, I think you guys really showed a strong understanding of the text, of the Zen book and the primary source. So I'll just say a few things about this week. I'm having us look at the Second Amendment quite a bit in the making of the Constitution, the clause about the militia, and a closer look at Shays' Rebellion, which I think is super hyper important and really not talked about quite a bit as much as it should be. And what I wanted to do is I want you to really think. It should be clear from the videos and some of my instructions, but if it's not, I'm really trying to get you to think about this idea that we have in our country, that the Second Amendment, that says that the right to bear arms. Well, it doesn't just say the right to bear arms. There are a lot of commas and talk about a regulated militia. And then, of course, I draw attention to the clause in the Constitution about the right for the state to use militias to suppress uprisings. Now, it's almost a given in American discourse that we all have a right to bear arms for self-defense, and it's also nearly a given, especially for gun rights activists, to say that we have a right to bear arms to protect us from the tyranny of our own government. In other words, what we're saying is our Constitution gives us the right to take guns that we have and use them on government officials or the state if they abuse power, and that this is supposed to secure our democracy. This is a common kind of understanding about the Second Amendment within certain political circles, and quite a large number. I would like you to think about that understanding in context to the Second Amendment as you fully read it, the militia clause, and then looking at the way that our state handled Shays' Rebellion and the Whiskey Rebellion. So that's a part of my instructions, but I want you to just kind of think about that. I will say that I think in relatively recent times, I might even later on publish this discussion with for you to look at as an optional thing on an announcement. There's an interesting debate between two very intelligent men who are scholars of law, of U.S. law, and the one gentleman is saying that the Scalia court, Justice Scalia, recently passed away, but that he interpreted the fact that the right to bear arms kind of, in a sense, means that we have an individual right to bear arms. And one other scholar mentions that that's not always been the case. And all I want to bring out to you is that you would think that this would be a straightforward kind of thing to understand. When I first started teaching this section at Modesto Junior College, I really wanted to get a handle on it because I knew that the topic of gun rights and gun regulation is such an important conversation, debate that we've been having in our country, and I wanted to just try to come at it with an unbiased point of view. I myself do have legally owned firearms, but I've never felt that as invested as, let's say, an NRA member. So anyhow, instead of me just telling you my conclusions, I just want you to go look at this and then just, incorporate these into the discussion, and then just think about the interesting, ways in which the Constitution was formed. So I hope you find this informative, and I hope it helps you also have more enriching conversations with people when it comes to this topic that gets so many people fired up. Okay, if there's any other questions, of course, always contact me this week, and we'll be in touch.